Hi all, this is the apostate Peterson. Just kidding, it's actually me. So over the last few days, I have seen people post clips of this video from Jubilee of the interaction between Dr. Jordan Peterson and a Danny. And lots of people seem to not understand what really happened in this interaction and say things about it such as Dr. Jordan Peterson got destroyed. I have watched the interaction, and I certainly don't see Jordan Peterson being exposed or destroyed or humiliated. What I do see when I watch this video is it reminds me of high school. I said this before. It's like when a bratty kid in high school roasts the teacher and then everybody laughs, and this kid has like a 5 seconds of fame in front of the classroom. And then everybody moves on. And the teacher still has his status as a teacher, and the guy usually ends up being a loser in the long term. This is kind of what happened here in this exchange. And I'm not meaning to insult anybody here or, to call this kid a loser, although I basically just did. But let's just get it right, what actually happened here. In this conversation, in this exchange, Danny did not achieve anything. He did not refute Jordan Peterson's position, which was everybody worships something, even though they might not know, even atheists. He did not make a point for atheism. He did not refute Christianity. He rather strawmanned and misunderstood Jordan Peterson. What Jordan Peterson actually meant, and we can understand this when we go back to the previous woman who had a deep conversation with Jordan Peterson, and she was actually quite intelligent and argued in good faith.
So what makes one kind of foundational tenet better than another one?
That's an excellent question.
What Jordan Peterson meant is that even atheists who don't worship a god or anything do still engage in some kind of worship, because above all the things that they value, they still put something at the top or at the bottom of the hierarchy, which they prioritize above all, which they attend to, which they make sacrifices for. It could be a person, it could be themselves, it could be happiness, whatever it is. People worship something if they don't worship God. And you don't have to be a theist or a Christian to agree with that. It's actually a very simple, I don't know if it's simple, but you can simplify it like this. But it is a deeper philosophical question. We can't really see this when we look at a short clip, which is all about a gotcha moment. Danny here didn't even understand what Jordan Peterson said. He even asked Jordan Peterson to give his definition of worship, and Jordan Peterson then counted 3 things.
Can you be very clear about your definition of worship again?
Attend to, prioritize, and sacrifice for.
It goes much beyond that, as Jordan Peterson also clarifies.
Well, I could flesh it out, but that'll do for the time we have.
But what is most important here right now to realize is it is not just attend to. You can see here that Danny makes a very huge mistake because he doesn't understand what Dr. Jordan Peterson is arguing.
Do Catholics attend to Mary?
Yes.
So do they fit that description of worship?
He makes it look like if you can define something as attend to, it is sufficient to then say, okay, so that is worship. That's not the point. Once again, attend to, prioritize, and sacrifice for. What the heck? I just noticed that I now count like an American instead of counting like a German, which is what I always did. I'm being corrupted, man. Let's think about it again. There are so many things in our lives that we value and that we give some importance to and attend to. That doesn't mean that we worship every single one of those things. At the top of that hierarchy, or at the bottom, however you look at it, there is something greater, something more fundamental than everything that we value and everything that we attend to and that we prioritize.
Think about it as multiple values, but that there's a hierarchy of values with something at the bottom.
The one that we prioritize above all. That is the entire point of the hierarchy. That would be the object of worship.
At the bottom is God, and
That's a definition, yeah.
Yeah.
Danny doesn't understand this and then goes on to ask Dr. Jordan Peterson about Mother Mary in Catholicism. And once he gets the confirmation that Catholics attend to Mary, he then concludes that Catholics therefore worship Mary. And I know some people will say, oh, wow, good point. Yes, that's exactly what we think. However, the point that Danny here is making is not simply that Catholics worship Mary. He's just starting with an example here. And he will then conclude, he will then go on further from that and say, oh, so you also attend to this other thing. You also attend to this thing. You also attend to this authority. So therefore you worship them. That's the point that he's trying to make. But it's a very, very moot point. Jordan Peterson, even for a second, confirms that it is a worship what people show to Mary.
Fit that description of worship?
Yes?
So you would say Catholics
But then doesn't accept that it is the worship that we are looking for.
worship Mary,
Well, they might not put her in the highest
but
place.
you would put it that way.
No.
And things get only very slightly complicated here because the word worship has historically been used not just for devotion to God, for the ultimate being that we all worship. It has generally been used as a very, very strong reverence. But if we want to get to the one being that we worship above all, that we attend to, that we prioritize, that we sacrifice for above all, that would be, in the Christian worldview, only one being, and that is God. Dr. Jordan Peterson now, when speaking about Mary, for example, can very much confess that people attend to Mary. But even if we establish that, first off, it doesn't necessarily meet the criteria because, as we just said, the definition that Jordan Peterson gave on a basic level was attend to, prioritize, and sacrifice for. But secondly, and most importantly, it would also not put Mary on top of the hierarchy of value. So when this kid then says, oh, therefore you worship Mary, or therefore you worship this, or therefore you worship that, he's actually missing the point because those things are not at the top of the hierarchy. The atheist in question, however, cannot deny that something is at the top of his hierarchy instead of God. For example, his own life or his own well-being or the well-being of humanity. And this shouldn't be a very difficult thing to admit. I'm going to be very honest. I can go back and find examples of myself actually admitting when I identified as an atheist that what I worshipped and put on the highest level of priority was human life, for example, or my loved ones, my family. It shouldn't be a problem to say, if you are an atheist, that this is what you value the most, what you prioritize, what you would sacrifice your own life for, and what you worship. That's the entire point. So not only did Danny not make Jordan Peterson look bad, he also missed the entire point. He probably didn't pay attention. Maybe it's because a woman was talking, I don't know.
You can attend to something trivially, or you can attend to it deeply.
And now you're adding stuff to the definition.
I added the hierarchy part at the beginning. You just didn't understand it.
Are you familiar?
To be fair, Dr. Jordan Peterson, it's very difficult to handle such things in the heat of the moment, but he could have here noted that Danny completely misses the point and misunderstands what the argument actually is and could have clarified that. But Danny is just out for the gotcha moment. And then he distracts from it with whether Jordan Peterson is a Christian or not. At which point it just goes downhill.
You're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Because whether Jordan Peterson identifies as a Christian or not is entirely irrelevant to the conversation that we're having. It is, however, relevant to a different point, which is why people went wild about this clip. So this smug kid then points out that this is supposed to be a conversation between a Christian and 20 atheists, and the room seems to kind of agree with that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists? You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Now here is my question, and here is where things seem to have gone really wrong. As far as I understand, Jordan Peterson never in the past identified directly as a Christian. He did say certain things such as that he thinks it is true that Jesus is God, at which point he should just call himself a Christian, to be honest, but I see why he won't, and has said, for example, that the resurrection did occur, but he abstained from directly identifying as a Christian. So it would strike me as surprising if he actually agreed to be put on the stage and be identified as a Christian. The atheists, however, surrounding him seem to be under the impression that it's quite clear that he is a Christian, which makes it look like a Jubilee, the organizers, made it clear that this is one Christian versus 20 atheists. We can also see this in the title change. When the video first was published, it was titled One Christian versus 20 Atheists. Few hours after it was made public, the title was changed into Jordan Peterson versus 20 Atheists. Somebody messed something up. And I'm wondering who did that. I wonder if Dr. Jordan Peterson or Jubilee will be able to clarify this. Did they present the topic differently to Dr. Jordan Peterson? Did they, however, present the topic like that to the atheists? Or did Dr. Jordan Peterson misunderstand the topic? I don't know, something seems to have gone wrong here. But it was meant to be a conversation between Dr. Jordan Peterson and 20 atheists, as it looks like, as Jubilee puts it here. Not one Christian and 20 atheists. Long story short, Danny here did not destroy or humiliate or make a fantastic point and did not actually achieve anything. Dr. Jordan Peterson's point still very much stands. And even from an atheistic point of view, there is nothing wrong with it. But secondly, somebody really messed up here. What exactly happened? We don't really know what happened, but what didn't happen is that Jordan Peterson got destroyed. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Have a fantastic day, and as always, stay away from Islam.